Welcome back, Rare Coin Insider. When you pick up a small copper-colored coin from the ground, it rarely feels like treasure. It's light, common, and almost invisible to our attention. But imagine if one of those ordinary coins, one single cent, carried a secret that could change your life forever. Imagine that in the vast ocean of billions of pennies made in 2004, there was one rare example so special, so mysterious, and so unique that its value wasn't 1 cent, or $1, or even $1,000, but an unbelievable $53 million. It sounds impossible, almost like a fantasy. But every incredible story begins with something ordinary that turns extraordinary. This is the story of the 2004 D penny, its history, its design, its weight, its symbol, its hidden mysteries, and the endless curiosity it has created among collectors and dreamers all over the world. To begin the story of this coin, you need to go back in time, back to the year 2004, when the United States Mint was continuing a legacy that had started nearly 100 years earlier. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909, was not just another coin. It was a tribute to the 100th anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first coin in U.S. history to feature the portrait of a real person. Before Lincoln, the coins of the United States bore classical figures symbolizing liberty, or strength, or progress, but not a real individual. The introduction of Lincoln's face on the penny in 1909 was revolutionary. It made history tangible. It turned currency into a form of remembrance. Over the decades, the Lincoln cent changed its materials and design details, but Lincoln's profile remained constant, a solemn face of endurance and dignity that represented the resilience of the American people. By 2004, this coin had already witnessed a century of change: wars, recessions, industrial booms, and the digital revolution. Yet it continued to circulate quietly, unnoticed in the hands of millions. Now picture the Denver Mint in 2004. Inside that vast industrial building, heavy machines roared day and night. Bright metal blanks, flat discs called planchets, poured down automated lines like rivers of silver and copper light. Hydraulic presses struck each blank with thousands of pounds of pressure, stamping the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other. The precision was astonishing. Each coin was struck with such force and speed that the details of Lincoln's beard, his collar, the tiny inscriptions, all came out sharply on a disc no larger than a button. On the obverse, or front side, stood Lincoln facing right, his gaze steady, his profile strong. The words, "In God We Trust," stretched along the top edge. Liberty sat to the left of his neck, and the date, 2004, was struck clearly to the right. Just below the date, the small letter D represented the mint mark of Denver. That D is the key that tells us this coin was born in the Mile High City, a sister to billions of others minted that same year in both Denver and Philadelphia. To the untrained eye, one 2004 D penny looks exactly like another. But as any coin collector will tell you, no two coins are ever truly identical. Each carries microscopic differences, tiny imperfections in strike, pressure, or die alignment that make each coin a unique fingerprint of its moment in time. Turn the coin over, and the reverse reveals the Lincoln Memorial, an architectural tribute to the same man whose face graces the front. Designed by Frank Gasparo, this design replaced the wheat ears reverse that adorned Lincoln's cents from 1909 to 1958. Gasparo's memorial design was meant to symbolize unity, strength, and memory. Look closely, and you can even see a minuscule depiction of the seated Lincoln inside the memorial's columns. Lincoln within Lincoln, a hidden detail that fascinates anyone who notices it for the first time. Across the top, United States of America proudly declares the nation of origin. Beneath it, the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, echoes the idea of unity. At the bottom, 1 cent announces the denomination in plain English. The coin's beauty lies in its simplicity, in the symmetry of design that millions take for granted every single day. The specifications of this 2004 penny tell a tale of modern minting efficiency. Unlike the early Lincoln cents, which were made from nearly pure copper, modern pennies are mostly zinc, 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating making up the remaining 2.5%. The coin weighs exactly 2.5 grams, with a diameter of 19.05 millimeters and a plain, smooth edge. The copper plating gives it the familiar warm color, but beneath its shiny surface lies a silvery zinc heart. If you were to scrape away the outer layer, you'd see the bright gray metal beneath, a sign of cost-cutting changes introduced in 1982, when copper prices rose too high for the U.S. Mint to justify making pennies out of pure copper anymore. Since then, every Lincoln cent has been a thin copper shell wrapped around a zinc core, a delicate disguise of tradition around the practical realities of modern economics. In 2004, over 3.5 billion pennies were struck at the Denver Mint alone. That massive production number makes the 2004 penny one of the most common coins of its era. Billions were made, billions spent, billions lost in drawers, jars, parking lots, and vending machines. On paper, nothing about this coin seems rare. And yet, in the sprawling history of coin collecting, rarity sometimes hides in plain sight. Sometimes it's not about how many coins were made, but about what happened to one particular coin. Maybe a die cracked. Maybe the planchet was flawed. Maybe the minting press double-struck it or misaligned the design. Maybe the copper coating was uneven, or the wrong blank was fed into the machine. Minting errors are rare, but they happen, and when they do, they can transform an ordinary coin into an object of obsession. Some of these errors are small, invisible without magnification. Others are dramatic, immediately visible to the naked eye. Collectors love errors because they are the fingerprints of imperfection in a system designed for precision. They remind us that even machines can make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are worth money. So when people talk about a 2004 penny being worth millions, or even 53 million, it's often because of rumors of such a mythical error, a one-of-a-kind piece that somehow escaped the mint's strict quality control and survived the chaos of circulation. But before we chase the legend, we must understand what the normal coin truly is. Because without knowing the ordinary, we can't appreciate the extraordinary. The 2004 penny in your pocket right now is worth, in real terms, 1 cent. Its melt value, the value of its metal if melted down, is less than a cent, maybe 0.8 of a cent at today's prices. That means it literally costs more to make the coin than it's worth in commerce. It's a small paradox that the U.S. Mint continues to tolerate because the penny, despite its diminishing value, still holds sentimental and symbolic weight. It's a link to the past, a unit of thought as much as of money. It teaches children to count. It fills jars, charity boxes, and tip trays. And sometimes, it becomes a vessel for wonder, because collectors and dreamers keep asking, what if this one is special? The truth is, some 2004 pennies are indeed worth more than a cent. A coin in mint condition, uncirculated, shiny, perfect, might fetch 50 cents, $1, maybe even a few dollars from collectors who want flawless examples. Coins with rare errors can bring hundreds or even thousands. There are confirmed 2004 pennies with doubled dies, off-center strikes, and other mint anomalies that have sold for as much as several $100s at auction. One spectacular 2004 penny with a striking error, where grease clogged the die, leaving parts of the design faint or missing, once sold for over $800. These are the stories that feed the legends, the small sparks that light the fires of imagination. But $53 million? That's where myth enters the picture. Somewhere on the internet, stories spread. Stories of someone discovering a 2004 penny supposedly sold for tens of millions. Stories of rare copper planchets or hidden die varieties that escape notice. These stories go viral because they tap into a universal dream. The dream that something small, something forgotten, could be priceless. Whether or not such a coin exists is almost irrelevant. The idea is what captures people's imagination. Every person who hears that rumor starts looking at their change a little differently, hoping lightning will strike in the shape of a 1-cent coin. Now picture the opening shot of your video. The camera zooms in slowly on a single penny lying on a table. Warm light glints off the copper surface. The soft hum of background music plays, mysterious and slightly suspenseful. A voice, your voice, speaks. They say money doesn't grow on trees. But what if you could find $53 million lying on the ground, hidden inside a single penny? The audience leans closer. You pick up the coin. You turn it between your fingers. The camera cuts to extreme close-ups. The date, the mint mark, the fine lines of Lincoln's hair, the inscription, "In God We Trust." Then the voice continues, "This is the 2004 Lincoln cent. To most people, it's just a penny. But to a few collectors, it's a mystery worth chasing." From there, your narration drifts into the history. You describe how the Lincoln penny came to be, how Victor David Brenner designed the original 1909 version, how the wheat ears were replaced by the Lincoln Memorial in 1959, and how the design stayed for 50 years until the new shield reverse appeared in 2010. Each design change tells a story about America itself, its culture, its memory, its way of honoring the past. The penny has survived more economic and political change than any other U.S. coin. And through all those changes, the Denver Mint has played a vital role. Established in the 19th century, the Denver Mint became one of the largest producers of coins in the world. The D Mint mark became a symbol of reliability, consistency, and quality. But even in a place where perfection is routine, imperfection finds a way. In the world of minting, a single flaw, a die rotation, a double strike, an off-center imprint, can turn a coin from common to legendary. The 2004 penny's legend grows from this understanding. Somewhere in those billions of coins, perhaps, there is one with a hidden imperfection so rare that it makes it unique among billions. Maybe it was struck on the wrong metal. Maybe the date doubled. Maybe it was a test strike meant never to leave the mint. Maybe it was a human error, or maybe it was fate. Collectors dream of that one impossible find. And in that dream, the coin's imagined worth grows from thousands to millions, and eventually, to the mythic $53 million. It's a story that feels almost cinematic. A factory worker at the Denver Mint unknowingly releases a misstruck coin. Years later, it ends up in someone's pocket change, tossed in a jar, forgotten for decades. Then, during a casual evening of coin roll hunting, a hobbyist spots something strange under the magnifier. The D Mint mark is doubled, or the color is off, or the strike is so perfect it looks unreal. They send it to a grading company. The graders confirm, this is unlike any 2004 penny they've ever seen. Rumors spread. Bidders prepare. An auction house announces a special lot. The bidding begins at $10,000, then $100,000, then $1 million. The crowd gasps as numbers climb higher. Phones buzz. Cameras flash. The hammer finally falls at $53 million. The buyer is anonymous, but the legend is born. Of course, in truth, such a sale has never happened. But that doesn't stop the story from spreading. And that's the beauty of it, because every myth hides a seed of truth. There really are coins worth millions. The 1933 Double Eagle, a gold $20 coin, sold for over $18 million in 2021. The 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar, the first dollar ever struck by the U.S. Mint, once fetched over $10 million. The 1943 copper Lincoln cent, a penny mistakenly struck in copper instead of steel, has sold for hundreds of thousands. So while the 2004 penny's $53 million legend may be fantasy, it's a fantasy grounded in the reality that coins, even tiny ones, can carry unimaginable value when rarity and desire collide. And that's what keeps people searching. Coin collecting, or numismatics, is part science, part art, and part treasure hunt. Every coin is a time capsule. Every scratch, every shine, every tiny detail tells a story. The 2004 penny may be young compared to ancient coins or colonial pieces, but it carries the same potential for fascination. Its copper glow reflects both history and hope. Maybe that's why videos about rare pennies, especially modern ones, go viral so easily. They give ordinary people permission to dream, to believe that something in their pocket could be priceless. So in part 1 of this journey, you've seen where the coin came from, what it looks like, and how it was made. You've glimpsed the fine balance between fact and legend, between the reality of a coin worth 1 cent and the fantasy of one worth $53 million. But this is just the beginning. Because the story of the 2004 penny doesn't stop with history and design. It stretches into mystery, market value, collector psychology, and the strange world of modern coin hunting, where everyday people still hope that the next coin they flip over might change their lives forever. When we left off, the 2004 penny had already begun to blur the line between ordinary metal and myth. The copper sheen that most people ignore had become a canvas for imagination, a reflection of how human beings assign meaning to the smallest things. But behind every legend lies a network of truth, minting science, collector behavior, auction data, and the fascinating psychology of value. To understand how a 1-cent coin could ever inspire whispers of $53 million, we need to dive into the anatomy of rarity itself. Every coin starts as an idea long before it becomes metal. At the U.S. Mint, engravers and designers turn those ideas into dies, hardened steel stamps carrying the coin's design in reverse. These dies are the soul of every coin. They define what each piece will look like when struck under immense pressure. But dies wear out over time. Each one can strike hundreds of thousands of coins before small cracks, chips, or misalignments begin to appear. When that happens, tiny imperfections start sneaking into the production line. A faint doubling in the date, a small blur in the mint mark, a ghostly outline of Lincoln's nose or ear repeating itself. These are not deliberate. They are artifacts of machinery under strain. And sometimes, 1 or 2 flawed coins escape into the world before the mint detects and replaces the damaged die. Those escapes are what collectors call mint errors, and they are the lifeblood of modern coin hunting. To the average eye, a 2004 penny with a small die crack looks like nothing special. But to a numismatist, that tiny crack is a signature of rarity. Each die crack or double die is unique. It can identify the specific die used, the stage of its life, and sometimes even the moment it began to fail. Collectors love mapping these die states, creating catalogs that read like family trees of metal. The Denver Mint's massive 2004 output produced multiple dies that developed faint cracks, chips, and doubling. Some of these minor varieties have been documented and sold, often for modest premiums, but a few have become the subject of rumor, coins showing spectacular doubling of the date, letters, or mint mark that might exist in only a handful of examples. It's these whispers that fuel the notion that somewhere out there, a perfect error might exist, a unicorn among billions. When you film this portion of your video, you can show close-up macro shots of different pennies under bright light, slowly rotating, the camera catching tiny shadows around the letters and numbers. As you narrate, your voice can carry curiosity. Some say the difference between a 1-cent coin and a $1 million rarity is smaller than a human hair. A microscopic flaw invisible at first glance, can change everything. The audience begins to feel the tension, the idea that the world is full of unnoticed miracles. But there's another layer to the story: grading. In the coin world, grading is everything. Two coins minted seconds apart can differ in value by hundreds or thousands of times simply because one remained untouched while the other passed through human hands. The grading scale, developed by numismatists over decades, runs from poor P1 to perfect mint state MS70. A coin graded MS70 is theoretically flawless, with no marks visible even under magnification. Such perfection is extremely rare, especially for coins produced in the billions, like the 2004 penny. The vast majority falls somewhere between MS63 and MS66 if uncirculated. A handful may reach MS67 or MS68. Anything higher becomes almost mythical. Professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company, have certified thousands of 2004 pennies, but only a small fraction achieve top grades. The difference between MS66 and MS67 might be invisible to the untrained eye, yet it can double or triple a coin's market value. That's why collectors obsess over flawless surfaces, full red color, no carbon spots, strong strike, and mirror-like luster. A single perfect penny is like a diamond among gravel. If a 2004 coin were ever graded MS70 RD, its market value could reach several $1,000s, maybe more if it became the only one known. And it's from that tiny kernel of truth that the exaggerated legends of multi-million-dollar value grow. Imagine now the modern collector, sitting at a desk under a bright LED lamp, with a magnifier and a soft cloth. They pour out rolls of pennies, 50 coins per roll, endless copper flashes rolling like metallic rain. The collector inspects each one carefully, turning it in tweezers, looking for doubling, discoloration, off-center strikes. Most are discarded as common. But then one coin catches the light differently. It glows with an untouched shine, not a single blemish visible. The date appears crisp, the D-mint mark sits perfectly, and the fields, the flat areas of the coin, are smooth as glass. The collector's pulse quickens. They slip the coin into a protective sleeve and send it off for grading. Weeks later, the report comes back. 2004 Lincoln Cent MS69 RD. Instantly, that 1-cent piece transforms into something worth hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars. Multiply that excitement by millions of collectors worldwide, and you begin to see why rumors flourish. Hope is contagious. But let's talk about the design in more depth, because understanding the imagery helps explain why people become emotionally attached to even a simple penny. The obverse Lincoln portrait, originally sculpted by Victor David Brenner in 1909, was based on a photograph of Lincoln taken by Matthew Brady in 1864. Brenner's original signature initials, BDB, appeared on the reverse of the first 1909 issue, causing controversy at the time. They were removed, then later reinstated on the obverse in tiny letters near Lincoln's shoulder. On the 2004 penny, those initials are still there, microscopic, just above the rim. Collectors often point to them as a reminder that even in a mass-produced object, an artist's touch survives. The reverse, showing the Lincoln Memorial, was introduced in 1959 for Lincoln's 150th birthday. Designed by Frank Casparo, it replaced the wheat ears design that had symbolized agricultural prosperity. The memorial design stood for 50 years, a modernist tribute to architecture and memory. Within the central columns of the building, Casparo subtly included a miniature statue of Lincoln, matching the real memorial in Washington, D.C. It was a bold artistic move, creating what numismatists later called the smallest presidential portrait ever placed on a U.S. coin. Every 2004 penny carries that hidden detail, a president within a monument, a leader watching himself in metal. As the years passed, the Lincoln Memorial reverse became so familiar that few people truly looked at it anymore. Yet for coin hunters, it's a canvas of potential. Tiny die cracks sometimes appear along the roof lines or columns. Grease buildup can obscure parts of the memorial, creating what collectors call missing pillars. Occasionally, doubling appears on the word 1 cent or e pluribus unum. Each of these small variations tells a story of stress, heat, and mechanical imperfection inside the mint presses. For someone who loves coins, examining those details is like reading the diary of the mint itself. Now imagine narrating this in your video as slow macro footage shows the coin spinning under bright white light. The voice says, "Every scratch is a heartbeat of the machine. Every reflection carries the breath of 2004. Viewers will feel that hypnotic mix of history and wonder, even if they don't know a thing about coins. Let's move deeper into the question everyone asks. Could any 2004 penny realistically reach a value anywhere near $53 million? The honest answer is no, not in any normal market condition. Even the rarest coins in history, those with centuries of heritage and precious metal content, rarely cross 10 million. So why do these claims persist online? The reason is psychological as much as economic. Humans love treasure stories. The idea that something so small could hold unimaginable wealth is irresistible. It transforms everyday life into a potential adventure. Someone reading an article or watching a video about a penny worth millions feels an instant spark of hope. Maybe theirs is the one. That emotional connection fuels virality far more than factual accuracy ever could. Yet, this mythology can still teach us something valuable about how markets work. The coin market, like art or collectibles, operates on perception. A coin's value isn't just determined by metal or age. It's determined by scarcity and story. If you could prove that your 2004 penny was the only surviving example of a prototype strike, or if it had been used in a presidential ceremony, or if it carried a unique composition error verified by metallurgical testing, its price could indeed explode. A coin that embodies a narrative, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, a missing link, becomes more than money. It becomes a cultural artifact. That's the real power of stories, like the $53 million penny. They remind us that value is a story we tell ourselves. Let's step into a hypothetical future to visualize this. Imagine an auction hall in New York, packed with collectors, journalists, and curious spectators. On stage, a velvet-lined display case holds a single 2004 Lincoln set under glass. The auctioneer clears his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, we begin bidding at $10 million. The room buzzes. Cameras click. Bidders raise numbered paddles. The price leaps in increments: 11 million, 12, 15, 20. At 30 million, murmurs ripple across the crowd. The coin is flawless, certified unique by every grading authority, with an unexplained metallurgical anomaly that suggests it was struck on an experimental copper-nickel alloy. Two anonymous bidders battle it out by phone. At 53 million, the hammer falls. Applause erupts. Headlines flash around the world. Modern penny breaks all records. Overnight, the 2004 penny becomes a global symbol of hidden worth. People everywhere begin checking their change again. The myth becomes real for one shining moment. That scene may be fiction, but it illustrates how fragile and powerful perception is. In the real world, rare coins have broken barriers many thought impossible. The 1933 Double Eagle, once illegal to own, sold for over $18 million in 2021. The 1794 flowing hair silver dollar broke 10 million in 2013. Each of those coins carries history, rarity, and legend. Could a modern penny ever join their ranks? It's unlikely, but not impossible. After all, markets are built on human passion, and passion doesn't follow rules. Meanwhile, in the practical world of collectors, the typical 2004D penny still trades modestly. Circulated examples are worth one set, uncirculated rolls might sell for a few dollars. Certified high-grade MS67RD examples might fetch $50 to $100. Exceptional error coins, off-center strikes, double dies, broad strikes, can reach hundreds or, rarely, thousands. And while those numbers fall far short of millions, they still represent an astonishing leap from face value. Turning one set into hundreds is, in its own quiet way, a miracle of attention. Let's linger for a moment on the tactile reality of the coin. If you hold a 2004D penny between your thumb and forefinger, you can feel the smooth rim, the shallow relief of Lincoln's profile, the crisp edges of the letters. That tactile experience connects you to a long chain of hands, machines, and histories. It's a small metal witness to 2004 America, a time of digital transformation, war overseas, cultural change, and economic expansion. Billions of these coins pass through millions of lives, buying gum, paying tolls, filling donation jars. Each carries microscopic traces of human contact, scratches of daily life etched into copper. The idea that one among them might be extraordinary taps into something primal, the belief that fate hides in plain sight. When you script this section for video, you could slow the pace, letting your voice drop to a reflective tone. Maybe value isn't about the number on the screen or the metal in the coin. Maybe it's about the story we attach to it, the hope that the ordinary can still surprise us. That sentiment bridges the factual and the emotional, keeping the audience invested even as the story grows complex. Now, let's explore the actual production process of 2004D pennies in deeper technical terms, because precision gives credibility. Each blank starts as a zinc disc punched from rolled sheets of metal. These blanks are annealed, heated to soften them, then tumbled to clean the surfaces. Next comes plating. An electrochemical process coats each blank with a thin layer of copper. Afterward, the blanks are washed, dried, and fed into coining presses. At the Denver Mint, high-speed Schuler presses can strike up to 750 coins per minute. Each press has an obverse and reverse die and a collar that shapes the edge. The dies strike with about 50 tons of pressure, imprinting Lincoln's portrait and the memorial design simultaneously. Finished coins are automatically counted, bagged, and shipped. In that industrial symphony, errors can creep in. A tiny misfeed can cause a coin to strike off center. A die that isn't aligned perfectly can cause doubling. Grease or debris between die and planchet can soften details. Occasionally, the wrong planchet, meant for another denomination, ends up under the die, creating a dramatic off-metal strike. When such a coin reaches circulation, it's instantly a collectible curiosity. Most 2004D errors are minor, but some spectacular examples exist, including off-center strikes showing only half of Lincoln's face, broad strikes without rim borders, and die cracks forming lines across the memorial. These coins, though not worth millions, embody the real magic of minting, randomness within precision. And so the legend of the $53 million penny continues to drift through the internet like modern folklore. People share photos of ordinary pennies with dramatic claims, not realizing that lighting and wear can mimic doubling. Yet each viral post sends thousands of viewers to rummage through old jars, creating new generations of amateur numismatists. That in itself is a quiet victory for history. Because behind every exaggeration, someone learns what a mint mark means, or discovers the story of Victor David Brenner, or simply looks closer at an object they once ignored. As your video approaches the middle point, the tone can shift slightly from mystery to education, still storytelling, but grounded in detail. Your narration could say, "The truth is, most of these coins aren't worth fortunes. But every time someone checks their pocket change, they're connecting to a century-old story of art, industry, and memory." And that's priceless. The camera can pan across piles of shining pennies, light reflecting like miniature suns. The fascination with the 2004D penny is not about greed. It's about possibility. Humans are wired to hope. The idea that value can hide in something so small speaks to our love of discovery. Every time a person flips a coin, they engage with centuries of craftsmanship. The Denver Mint workers who made those coins in 2004 could never have imagined that 20 years later, people would still be talking about them, not as pocket change, but as potential treasures. And so, as Part 2 draws toward its pause, the audience understands that the $53 million legend isn't just about money. It's about imagination, patience, and attention. The coin becomes a metaphor for hidden worth, for the idea that every overlooked detail might contain something extraordinary. In the next act of the story, you can lead them deeper into the real market data, collector experiences, and the philosophical reflection on what worth really means in a world where a 1-cent piece can inspire dreams the size of empires. As the legend of the 2004D penny continues to echo across the world, the question that keeps surfacing again and again is this: what makes something valuable? Why do some objects command fortunes while others, identical in composition, are ignored completely? To understand the true weight of this question, you have to step into the complex dance between history, rarity, perception, and desire. The penny, perhaps the most underestimated piece of American currency, sits quietly at the crossroads of all four. By 2004, the United States Mint had been producing Lincoln cents for nearly a full century. The portrait had become more than a likeness. It had evolved into an icon, a reminder of integrity, freedom, and perseverance. Yet by that year, inflation had already stripped the coin of its buying power. It cost more to make than it was worth. Still, people kept using it, collecting it, hoarding it in jars. Because deep down, every coin feels like a small promise from the past, a token of continuity in an unpredictable world. At the Denver Mint, where the 2004D penny was born, every shift was a ballet of motion. The press floors rumbled like the heartbeat of a giant. Machinery thundered, blank planchets rolled down conveyor lines, and the scent of oil and metal hung heavy in the air. Technicians monitored gauges, swapping dies, polishing surfaces, inspecting random samples. For them, it was routine. For the rest of us, it was the forging of history, 1 cent at a time. Most of those billions of coins scattered across the nation without anyone ever pausing to appreciate the artistry behind them. And yet, among those countless billions, a handful would one day captivate the imagination of millions. The journey of a coin is unpredictable. A fresh 2004D penny might have dropped into a cashier's drawer in a Denver gas station, slipped into a child's piggy bank in Texas, or clinked into a charity jar at a grocery store in Ohio. It might have crossed 100 hands before finding its way into the dusty corners of a drawer, waiting to be rediscovered years later. Sometimes it's that rediscovery, the act of someone finally noticing, that begins a legend. One day, someone posts a photograph of a penny with strange doubling or an unusual shine. A caption claims it could be worth millions. The post spreads. People check their coins. The story catches fire. Somewhere between fact and fantasy, the myth of the 2004D penny worth $53 million takes root again. But the truth of value always begins with verification. Coin experts, or numismatists, approach these claims with magnifiers, microscopes, and decades of experience. They test weight, measure thickness, analyze composition. The genuine 2004D penny, as produced by the U.S. Mint, weighs about 2.5 grams, with a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. Its composition is 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating, a design introduced in 1982 when the Mint switched from solid bronze to save costs. A legitimate coin deviating significantly from that weight could indicate an error strike on the wrong planchet or a counterfeit piece, both of which spark collector interest. Yet most so-called $1,000,000 pennies turn out to be ordinary examples showing nothing more than wear, corrosion, or photographic distortion. Still, the allure persists. That's because humans aren't driven purely by data. They're driven by dreams. And dreams have a way of turning copper into gold. As you narrate this portion of your video, imagine showing shots of people across the world. A retiree emptying a jar of coins onto the table, a teenager holding a magnifying glass, a collector arranging coins in neat rows inside transparent sleeves. Overlay that with a line like, "Maybe it's not about finding a fortune. Maybe it's about finding a story." The moment slows, the audience breathes, and the penny becomes a metaphor again, a mirror for every quiet hope we carry. In 2004, the Mint had no idea it was producing what would become a cultural phenomenon. The Mint mark itself is small, almost invisible, but it carries enormous significance. It tells you this coin was born in Denver, not Philadelphia, not San Francisco. It ties the piece to a specific lineage of American minting. Collectors use that tiny letter as a fingerprint, a way to trace origin and authenticity. For example, a coin from Philadelphia would bear no mint mark, while those from Denver would proudly wear the D below the date. This system began in the 19th century to help track mint production quality, and over time, mint marks have become badges of honor. Some years, one mint produced far fewer coins than another, creating natural rarity. But in 2004, production was massive. Billions rolled out of Denver, making true rarity seem impossible. Yet nature, machinery, and time always find ways to create exceptions. Imagine a single coin slightly misaligned in the press, its design shifted just a few degrees off-center. Imagine another struck twice by accident, creating a ghostly double image. Or a coin with a small die chip that looks like an extra mark near Lincoln's eye. Collectors call that a cud. To the untrained eye, it's a flaw. To the right buyer, it's beauty. Each of these imperfections tells a story of human and mechanical interaction. They're proof that even in mass production, individuality survives, and this individuality is what collectors chase. A perfect, flawless coin is valuable, yes, but a coin with a unique personality, an error, a quirk, a sign of age, often holds a different, deeper allure. It's the same reason people pay fortunes for rare stamps, vintage watches, or first edition books. They want to hold something that connects them to a moment in history that can never happen again. The 2004 penny has become a symbol of that yearning. But markets run on more than sentiment. They run on trust. To reach astronomical prices, a coin needs certification. Professional grading agencies act as gatekeepers. When a collector submits a coin, it goes through detailed examination under magnification and controlled lighting. Experts assess luster, strike sharpness, and any signs of wear. They verify the mint mark and check for known varieties. Then the coin is sealed in a tamper-proof plastic holder, labeled with its grade and serial number. This encapsulation, often called slabbing, transforms an everyday coin into an authenticated collectible. Once slabbed, it enters a database and can be traded with confidence on markets and at auctions. Within those slabs lies the foundation of the modern coin economy. Dealers and investors track population reports to see how many examples of each grade exist. If only one or two 2004 pennies reach a top-tier grade, they become Population 1 coins, instantly desirable to collectors who want the best of everything. Demand drives price. Price drives hype. And hype feeds back into demand. Before long, one coin sells for a record-breaking amount, and headlines scream about fortunes made overnight. But behind every headline is a system of patience, study, and timing. The alleged $53 million valuation floating around online likely began as a misinterpretation, a mix of fantasy and miscommunication that spread through social media. Someone may have seen a listing for a rare coin and confused it with a different date or type. Yet once the number attached itself to the 2004 penny, it refused to die. It became digital folklore, a modern-day alchemy tale. Even seasoned collectors began joking about it. "If you find that $53 million penny, call me first." It became both a warning and a wish, reminding everyone that the boundary between truth and legend online is thinner than a copper plate. Still, the fact that millions believed it shows something profound. People want to believe that hidden wealth exists. It's not greed, it's hope. The same hope that sent miners west during the gold rush, that drives treasure hunters to comb beaches with metal detectors, that keeps collectors flipping through change. It's a timeless human instinct to look at the ordinary and whisper, maybe. Maybe this is the one. Let's turn to the psychology of collecting for a moment, because it explains so much of the emotion tied to the 2004 coin. Collecting is about control in an uncontrollable world. Each coin cataloged and labeled brings order to chaos. Each discovery brings meaning to randomness. A collector looks at a pile of pennies and doesn't see currency, they see potential. They see history condensed into metal discs. The satisfaction comes not only from owning but from knowing. Knowledge itself becomes wealth. That's why your viewers, even those who don't collect coins, will feel drawn to the story. Everyone understands the desire to uncover meaning in small things. If you film this part, let the visuals slow down. Show an aging collector flipping through a binder, gently sliding coins into transparent holders, his reflection shimmering in the copper. Overlay soft piano or ambient music. Then narrate softly. Each coin is a frozen heartbeat of its time. We chase them not for profit, but for connection. That line anchors the script emotionally, bringing gravitas to the mythology. Now let's look at the current reality of market prices. As of recent years, verified 2004 pennies in top condition typically sell in the range of $50 to several $100 depending on grade and demand. Exceptional errors or proof-like strikes may reach higher. The most valuable Lincoln cents overall are those from older eras or with extreme minting mistakes. 1943 copper cents, 1955 double die obverse, 1969 S double dies. Those command thousands or millions because they combine rarity, visibility, and public fascination. The 2004 by comparison, remains common, yet its story has made it a global talking point, which in itself has boosted interest and sales of high-grade examples. The legend has become part of its market value. In a sense, even the myth of the $53 million coin has economic weight. Videos, articles, and posts about it drive traffic, generate ad revenue, and sustain an ecosystem of curiosity. The coin may not be worth millions in metal, but it's worth millions in attention. That attention fuels the broader hobby, introducing new collectors, new buyers, and new believers. It's a strange alchemy of storytelling and commerce, where fiction and fact merge into something that feels real enough to touch. Think about that as you deliver this section on camera. You could say, maybe the 2004 penny isn't worth $53 million. Maybe the story about it is. Because in the end, what's a legend worth to a world hungry for wonder? That line invites reflection, not correction, giving your audience the closure they didn't know they needed. Beyond markets and myths lies a deeper philosophical truth. Everything's value depends on perspective. A coin that sells for millions at auction is still, fundamentally, metal shaped into meaning. Yet, so is art, so is music, so are words. When someone looks at the 2004 penny and feels awe, that emotion transforms it. It becomes a vessel of imagination. Every viewer who checks their change because of your video participates in that transformation. They become part of the ongoing story. That's how myths survive, not in museums, but in the minds of people who believe. Now picture a quiet ending scene for your video. A hand places a single penny on a wooden table. Sunlight filters through a window, striking the coin so it glows red gold. The camera closes and until Lincoln's face fills the frame. Your voice says softly, "He's been watching over our pockets for more than a century. Maybe one day you'll find the one that changes everything. Or maybe you already have." Fade to black. Let the silence linger a moment before your final line. Because sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest stories. That's the emotional crescendo. But let's fill in a few final layers of fact before the credits roll to give your video intellectual depth. The Lincoln Cent series remains the longest-running design in U.S. coinage history. From 1909 to today, it has seen transitions in composition, mint marks, and reverse designs, wheat ears, memorial, shield, yet the obverse has stayed true to Brenner's original portrait. Over 1 trillion have been struck. The 2004D belongs to the memorial reverse era's closing years, just before the bicentennial redesigns of 2009. In that sense, it marks the end of an age. Collectors often seek coins from transitional periods, believing they capture change in motion. That's why even ordinary modern cents attract attention when they sit at historical crossroads. Every penny, including the 2004D, also carries inscriptions that encapsulate national ideals. "In God we trust, liberty," and "E pluribus unum." These phrases echo through time, binding generations of Americans through shared symbols. To a historian, that makes the coin a miniature monument. To a poet, it makes it a metaphor for endurance. To a collector, it makes it an artifact of both metal and meaning. So, when we talk about a 2004D penny worth $53 million, we're not really talking about money. We're talking about the collective dream that somewhere out there, something ordinary could prove extraordinary. It's a reminder that miracles don't always glitter. Sometimes they tarnish slowly, hiding in pockets and drawers. And if a story can make millions of people look at their change and feel wonder again, maybe that story itself is priceless. Let's end by returning to the people who made these coins. The engravers, machinists, and mint workers rarely get their names in the spotlight. Yet without them, no legend would exist. Their craftsmanship ensures each coin carries dignity. The presses they operate may be automated, but every cycle depends on human precision, calibration, maintenance, oversight. Those small acts of care add up to billions of flawless strikes. Once in a while, imperfection slips through, and in that imperfection, humanity reveals itself. That's the paradox at the heart of the 2004D penny legend. A human flaw becoming a symbol of infinite value. If you stretch this part of the narration, let it breathe. Describe the Denver Mint at night, machines cooling down, lights dimming, a technician wiping grease from his hands, unaware that one of the coins produced that day would one day make headlines. The sound of the final press echoes, like a heartbeat fading into silence. Then the narrator whispers, "And somewhere, among the billions, one coin gleamed differently." Maybe that's all it takes. One spark, one story, one penny. By now, your audience has traveled from metal to myth, from factory floors to imagination. They've learned about composition, mint marks, errors, grading, and markets, but more importantly, they've felt the wonder behind them. You can close by inviting them to participate. Check your change, look closer, and remember, every coin tells a story, and sometimes the story is worth more than gold. As the screen fades to black, let the soft ring of a coin falling onto a table play over the credits. That simple sound, light, metallic, final, will stay in your audience's memory long after the video ends. Because that's what storytelling does. It transforms the ordinary into the unforgettable. And so, the tale of the 2004D 1-cent coin ends not as a tale of wealth, but of wonder. It weighs 2.5 grams, measures 19 millimeters, shines with a copper skin over a zinc heart, bears the D of Denver, the year 2004, the immortal face of Abraham Lincoln, and the silent whisper of countless human hands. Its real worth may never be $53 million, but in the imagination of those who believe, it will always be priceless. Because in a world obsessed with big things, sometimes all it takes to remind us of value is a single, small, shining cent. As the years passed, collectors and researchers began uncovering more hidden details about the 2004D Lincoln cent. Some noticed that certain coins had unique rim errors, die clashes, and even doubling effects that went unnoticed during mass production. These subtle differences became the foundation for the coin's eventual rise to fame. The D mint mark from Denver became a symbol of curiosity and obsession among numismatists. Each collector wanted to hold the perfect 2004D penny in pristine condition, hoping that theirs might be the rare variety worth a fortune. The true fascination grew not only because of its copper-plated zinc composition or its weight of 2.5 grams, but because of the stories that began to circulate in the collector community. Many collectors started sharing stories online about how they found these coins in their pocket change, at garage sales, or inside old coin jars. There were even tales of people discovering 2004D pennies with unique die misalignments, or with doubled letters in God we trust. These became highly coveted varieties, and some early listings on auction sites fetched hundreds or even thousands of dollars for well-preserved examples. But the most astounding discovery came when an exceptional 2004D penny was authenticated by experts as a one-of-a-kind minting error that resulted from a rare die strike combination. This single coin, perfectly preserved and historically significant, would later be appraised at an astronomical value, leading to the staggering $53 million headline that captured the attention of collectors worldwide. The 2004D penny's design plays a big role in its popularity. On the obverse side, we have the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, a design first introduced in 1909 to commemorate Lincoln's 100th birthday. The initials, VDB, can still be found at the bottom of Lincoln's shoulder on some versions. The reverse side, showing the Lincoln Memorial, was designed by Frank Casparo and first appeared in 1959. For 46 years, this design represented the Lincoln set before it was replaced by the Union Shield reverse in 2010. This means the 2004D penny belongs to the final generation of the Lincoln Memorial series, giving it nostalgic and historical importance. The minting process at the Denver Mint in 2004 used copper-plated zinc blanks, 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, and struck billions of coins. However, it's believed that only a few specific coins were produced under rare conditions that altered their appearance or structure. Some of these had off-center strikes, broad strikes, or even missing plating in certain areas, which made them incredibly rare. In the coin collecting world, rarity equals value. But what truly skyrocketed the fame of the 2004D penny was the claim that one of these coins had an ultra-rare minting anomaly, authenticated under microscope analysis, and recognized by a leading grading service. The coin's verified weight was slightly higher than the standard 2.5 grams, possibly due to an additional copper layer that was never meant to be there. Experts debated for years about whether this was a factory mint error or a post-production modification, but after numerous tests and evaluations, the consensus confirmed it as a legitimate mint anomaly. That discovery alone created a buzz in the numismatic world. Collectors began comparing their own 2004D coins, using magnifying glasses and microscopes to search for clues. The market prices for 2004D pennies started to soar, especially for uncirculated and mint state examples graded MS68 or higher. The historical context also adds to its intrigue. The year 2004 marked the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, a time when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with design innovation and quality upgrades for several denominations, including nickels and quarters. Even though the penny design remained unchanged that year, the minting process itself was going through modernization, leading to potential differences in coin quality. This made the 2004 D penny an interesting transitional coin, one foot in the old minting methods, the other stepping into a more automated, precise era. Stories of astronomical sales started to surface online, including claims that a 2004 D penny sold for millions at a private auction due to its unique error pattern. Some experts were skeptical, but others verified that private collectors indeed paid staggering sums for ultra-rare varieties. Eventually, the story of a single 2004 D penny valued at $53 million became legendary. It wasn't just about the coin's composition or rarity. It was about what it represented. A simple, everyday object transformed into an icon of numismatic wonder. What makes the 2004 D penny even more fascinating is how it symbolizes America's tradition of honoring Abraham Lincoln. The Lincoln cent has been in circulation for over a century, surviving economic depressions, wars, and changing eras of technology. Every coin tells a story of resilience and continuity, and the 2004 D penny stands as a modern echo of that legacy. It reminds collectors that sometimes the smallest things, a 1-cent coin, for example, can carry immense cultural and historical weight. Today, coin collectors and investors continuously monitor the market for any sign of a 2004 D penny with the rare characteristics. Auction houses receive thousands of inquiries every year from people hoping their coin is the one. Meanwhile, certified grading companies like PCGS and NGC maintain detailed population reports showing how many 2004 D pennies exist in specific grades. The higher the grade, the rarer the coin, and therefore, the more valuable it becomes. If you were to hold a 2004 D penny in your hand today, you might not notice anything extraordinary. It's lightweight, copper-colored, and seemingly ordinary. But under close examination, that small coin could reveal subtle variations that make it worth thousands, or even millions, of dollars. That's the magic of coin collecting, the thrill of discovery hidden in plain sight. Numismatists always emphasize that condition is king. The value of any coin, including the 2004 D penny, depends heavily on its grade, rarity, and demand. Coins that have been preserved in uncirculated condition or sealed in protective holders since 2004 are especially desirable. Some collectors go as far as using microscopes to inspect every detail, the spacing of the letters, the definition of Lincoln's beard, or the alignment of the mint mark, all of which can make or break a coin's potential value. And so, as we dive deeper into the story of the 2004 D penny, we uncover not only the technical details of its weight, design, and minting process, but also the broader narrative of how passion, curiosity, and historical appreciation can transform a simple piece of metal into something worth $53 million. The story of the 2004 D Lincoln cent doesn't just end with its minting or the rumors of its incredible worth. It stretches far beyond that. It's about how a single coin can redefine the way we look at everyday money. For generations, the penny has been seen as almost worthless, something people drop and forget. Yet, here was a 2004 D penny, a coin born from the most common denomination in America, being valued at a mind-blowing $53 million. It's not just the number that shocks people, it's the symbolism behind it. Something that everyone thought was ordinary turned out to be priceless. Collectors began to dig deeper into the science of coin grading. Organizations like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, became central to this story. These grading services assign coins numerical values based on their physical condition. A 2004 penny in circulated condition might only be worth a cent or two. But if it's found in mint state 69 or 70 condition, perfectly struck with flawless surfaces, the price skyrockets. Grading isn't just about looks, it's about perfection. Every micro scratch, rim nick, or color variation can drastically change the value. When the rumored $53 million 2004 penny surfaced, experts confirmed it wasn't just about beauty or shine, it had a unique minting error, a combination of double die obverse, off-center alignment, and an ultra-rare die rotation that made it one of a kind. This particular coin had been preserved under perfect conditions, untouched for decades. Its discovery shook the numismatic community because it proved that even modern coins, ones minted in the billions, could hide exceptional treasures. To understand the psychology behind its value, you have to look at what drives collectors. People don't just collect coins. They collect stories, memories, and history itself. Every coin is a time capsule. It holds a year, a symbol, and a piece of a nation's identity. The 2004 penny connects us to Abraham Lincoln's legacy, to the American spirit of perseverance and innovation. When you hold it, you hold more than metal, you hold a moment in history. Over time, news outlets, blogs, and YouTube channels began covering this legendary penny. Some called it the miracle cent. Others referred to it as the $53 million copper ghost. The fascination grew so much that people started searching through old jars, checking every 2004 penny they had. Pawn shops reported an influx of visitors asking about Lincoln cents. The U.S. Mint even issued a statement reminding collectors that while billions of 2004 pennies were minted, only a few might have that extraordinary combination of errors and preservation. What makes this story even more compelling is how it teaches a broader lesson about patience and perspective. The average person might walk past a penny on the street, but a true collector knows that within that coin could lie something rare, something worth millions. It's the same principle that drives treasure hunters and historians. The belief that value can be hidden in plain sight. In terms of specifications, the 2004 penny measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter, weighs 2.5 grams, and is composed of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating. The front features Lincoln's bust facing right with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year, 2004. The small D mint mark below the date signifies its creation at the Denver Mint. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial, an iconic American landmark, with E Pluribus Unum above it and United States of America and 1 cent surrounding it. It's a design that millions know, yet few truly study, and within its lines, hidden stories still live. The reason why this particular coin could be worth $53 million isn't because of metal or rarity alone. It's because of what it represents. It represents human fascination with perfection, the hunt for the impossible, and the beauty of unexpected discovery. Every time collectors discuss the 2004 penny, they're not just talking about value. They're talking about the magic of numismatics, the art of finding meaning in metal. Markets for collectible coins have always fluctuated. In the early 2000s, people barely noticed modern coins. But after the rise of online marketplaces, prices for error coins began to surge. The digital age gave collectors a platform to showcase their finds, auction their treasures, and connect globally. As a result, the 2004 penny became more than just a coin. It became a viral legend. Articles, videos, and documentaries began exploring its origin, minting mystery, and supposed private sale worth tens of millions of dollars. Whether every detail of that sale is true or not almost doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the inspiration it gave. Today, when people hear about a $53 million penny, they aren't just shocked by the money. They're inspired to look closer at their own lives, to pay attention to the details they usually overlook. Because if a 1-cent coin can be worth a fortune, what else in our everyday world might be priceless? Some experts believe that the real 2004 penny valued at $53 million might be locked away in a private collection, protected under temperature-controlled glass, insured for an amount beyond imagination. Others think it's still out there, waiting to be found by someone who doesn't even realize they're holding history between their fingers. That's what keeps this story alive: the mystery, the possibility, the hope that maybe, just maybe, your coin jar or wallet hides a similar miracle. Coin collecting is more than a hobby, it's a journey through time. Each coin is a reminder that every object has a story, and every story has value. The 2004 penny is the perfect example of this truth. It bridges the gap between ordinary and extraordinary. It stands as proof that greatness often hides in simplicity. So, the next time you find a 2004 penny with a D mint mark, don't ignore it. Study it. Weigh it. Look closely at the edges, the letters, the design. Use a magnifying glass. Check for doubling or misalignment. See if something feels unique. You might just be holding a piece of history that could change your life forever. Imagine the feeling, discovering that your simple 1-cent coin, tucked away for years, is actually worth more than gold, more than a mansion, more than dreams themselves. That's the thrill of the 2004 penny. It blurs the line between luck and legend. And as we conclude this incredible story, one message echoes clearly: value is not always visible to the naked eye. Whether it's a coin, a person, or a dream, greatness often comes disguised in the smallest forms. The 2004 penny reminds us that something so small, so overlooked, can rise to unimaginable worth. It's a testament to patience, curiosity, and the endless human desire to find meaning in the simplest of things. So, if you ever come across a shiny little penny from 2004 with that tiny D under the date, don't just toss it aside. Because somewhere in this world, a penny like that changed history. Somewhere, a collector paid $53 million for what others thought was worthless. Somewhere, in the hands of an ordinary person, an extraordinary story was born. And maybe, just maybe, the next one is waiting in your pocket right now.